Some Way Home, a memoir in a myth by David and Barbara Kenny. Dedicated to my father who told me stories, and my son and his son who gives me reasons to tell them again and again. Prologue, Adam and the Untamed Fury. To let my eyes adjust, I crouched at the bottom of the stairs for a moment only. I couldn't see the boy or any movement in the shadows, but I knew he was there. I called his name, demanding and pleading together. The basement was a toxic and ablaze with a fire in the far right back corner. This basement was familiar, but seemed much larger than before. A crimson glow illuminated the stacks of furniture, sealed boxes, and bulging trash bags stuffed with forgotten treasures. Yes, this red cast made the labyrinth seem surreal. Dylan was my client, a foster child, and I wouldn't be responsible for his death, so shaking, I stood and shuffled forward with my knees bent deep. I saw the flames slide effortlessly to the unfinished ceiling, then rush laterally along the heavily laden shelves. Fighting the instinct to run away, I moved forward as swiftly as possible. Time was running out. Turning past a stack of boxes, I saw his thin form facing the rising bonfire. He held his arms at an odd angle, his elbows bent out at his ear level. His hands were located high above his head, with stiff fingers stretched up towards the ceiling, looking like feathers on a wing about to take flight. He began to bounce and then to jitter before the inferno. His face was wild, as if to encourage the flames, like a shaman before the untamed fury of a ritual fire. I lunged toward him. I had to grab forcefully to turn with him and run away, but he felt my grasp. He jerked forward and then back with huge force, hitting the bridge of my nose with the back of his substantial skull. The pain was a bright flash. My knees buckled and I went over, hitting the back of my head against something hard. For a moment of time, I thought I might be slipping into darkness, for I saw nothing but black. Filled with dismay, I startled awake, drenched in sweat and tangled in twisted, clinging sheets. For a second, in confusion, I wasn't sure if I had been there the day of the fire. But then I remembered I was, and this is what happened. Was I also with Dylan years before that, on the night his aunt was beaten, and her blood shone dark in the moonlight like spilt and pooling ink? No, I realized I wasn't. But I'd imagined it completely, so I saw it in other dreams. My name is Adam McDonald, and long ago I chose social services as a career. And for the most part, I've worked hard. And I hope I've done some good, but of late my thoughts return to all my mistakes as I search for causes to blame for the effects I didn't want. The consequences of my work are often beat out in the lives of the most vulnerable. And I know I haven't always kept true the maxim first, do no harm. Sometimes hurt and abandoned children suffered as the results of my inadequacies and my miscalculations. But of all the disappointed and hurt faces I remember, nothing pierces me, nothing accuses me like my thoughts of Dylan. In many ways, Dylan was an ordinary foster child on my caseload. He matched the normal statistics and background demographics of the typical disenfranchised youth in America. But in my life, he was anything but normal. He was a primal force, disastrous in both scope and impact, and above all failures. Dylan plays repeatedly in my mind. I don't even know if he's still alive. That's why these images return to me in troubled sleep 10 years on. I often dream of a drunken bad Daddy Bruce who staggered, hit, and burned the boy. I see the sweetness of Aunt Patty trying to provide comfort before slipping permanently into unconsciousness, and witness the hospital staff doing their best with a broken little boy. I dreamed of Mona's sweating face falsely welcoming us at the front door of her overstuffed house. I recall the joys and the bitter disappointments of Dylan's brief time with the Blanchards, and even scrutinized my social worker's sleight of hand and monotonous reiteration. I untangled myself and sat outside on a lawn chair in the still, sticky night air. I listened carefully as if I might hear the answer to my questions in the sounds of an outlying breeze shuffling through the dry trees, or the buzz of the 7-year cicadas. To save myself from the gloom of my regret, I needed to put all these memories in perspective, to understand my true culpability before I could seek forgiveness. I had to review what happened to Dylan and face the results of my efforts as honestly as I could. So this was my task. I was determined first to review Dylan's story to my understanding, and second, to find out what became of him and how the adoption turned out. I was resolved to search for the person, his adoptive dad, who knew, and interview him until satisfied. I had to go and find the truth, because only in Dylan's complete story could I find hope for release.